It's Thursday and it's 4 p.m. here in the UK. That means it's time for an Etch Play weekly live show. I'm your host Adam Burt, and today you've got a double helping of Ben Joy over on the right. How's it going, Ben?
I'm good, thank you. I'm very good. We made it to episode 2. We got
Yeah,
permission.
no one's cancelled us yet. That's a sign of a good show. We've got a lot to get through today. Actually, one really big thing to get through today, so we'll talk about that. Ben's sticking around. He's doing double duty today. He's going to join me for the news section because Dan is on holiday. And then stick around because later on we're going to go through some insights from Google into the latest marketing trends in gaming. So that's going to be exciting. We should get on with the news though, and there really is only one place to start.
Yeah, slow week, wasn't it? Nothing really happened.
If you've been living under a rock or a particularly large boulder, you may have missed this. But we finally know the worst kept secret in the industry, the Xbox Series S, has been unveiled. So this started a few days ago with some Twitter users and Windows Central actually reporting. They said there were some pictures of the box. They were like, hey, this is what it looks like. And they're also saying $299 for the Series S. And Microsoft, to their credit, just basically went, yeah, fine, here it is.
Do you think that was? Do you think it was accidental?
You think it might have been a controlled leak?
We're gonna leak it.
I mean, Phil Spencer said it was supposed to go out next week, and I trust Big Phil.
Okay.
So, yeah. Either way, Microsoft confirmed it at a really strange time for the US. It was like 2 in the morning US time, which was great UK time. But yeah, confirmed the design. We should talk about more in a second, and also confirm the price and some spec details come out this week as well. Let's talk about the design first, though. You've seen the design, I presume.
I have. Yeah, I think it looks okay.
You like
I'm still not keen. I'm not keen on the tower.
Okay.
But, I mean,
you want to lay it flat.
To it. Yeah, I think if I get it, I'll probably just lay it flat anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that seems sensible.
I think it looks all right. It looks nice and clean. Just too tall. Lay it down.
And I should say, $299 was confirmed to be 249 Great British pounds. It's unusual actually, because usually the exchange rate doesn't go in our favour like that. Ordinarily, because the US doesn't include sales tax, it would just be £299 and $299. But we've actually got a pretty sweet deal, £249.
Yeah, it's a very good price.
It's cheaper than a Switch, which is crazy to me. It's cheaper than the Switch, cheaper than a PlayStation 4 is, I think, right now. Yeah. Which is really impressive. Must be. I mean, they've either worked some magic or they're just subsidising it hard.
It's a good price point. I mean, I think that will get a lot of people in because obviously the Series X is spec'd to the 9s, but if you're not that bothered about that, then you don't need the X. You can get the S. Obviously, I think we'll probably go into the specs in a little bit.
Well, let's do that right now. So, the console, whereas the Series X boasts native 4K, the idea with the Series S is you have a 4K TV, you want something a little bit slimmer. It's designed to do essentially all the same things the X does, just at a lower native resolution. So they're saying 1440p, which I mean most monitors that do that, but more likely you'd be at 1080 if you're running on a TV. And yeah, interesting the list of things that it still supports. So it still has an SSD, which I think people expected. It is a smaller SSD, it's 512 gigabytes, which is not a lot for a digital-only console. In terms of like how many games you're going to fit on that. Are games going to be smaller next gen because of smart delivery, or because they don't have to stuff assets in multiple times to make loading times reduce because of the SSD? But yeah, it does ray tracing, which I think is
it's
a
still
big
got
win.
that 'cause it's still doing 120 FPS, isn't it? So it's still able to do that.
Yeah, so 60 FPS and up to 120. And often when people say that, they mean, this, not to be disparaging, but this indie game runs 120 FPS because it's simple. But they've actually come out and shown Gears 5 running at 120 on the Series S, which is, that's a very recent game. So it's pretty impressive that they're able to do that. The word on the street from developers is that this box is no joke. It is a incredibly powerful box despite its price, and it really just seems to be about whether you have that 4K TV or not. That seems to be the main differentiator.
Yeah. You said about the storage as well. Like, I think it's half, isn't it? It's half of what the X has. Which you say
it is
odd for digital only, but I was reading
SSDs are expensive.
Yeah, so you can get like a terabyte one to plug into the back. What I haven't read is how expensive that is going to be. So whether, but you can increase the storage if you need to, which I imagine quite a few people probably will.
Yeah, I mean, if games continue on their current trend of getting bigger, then they definitely will. Like look at like Modern Warfare's current gigabyte sizes are huge, astronomical. You don't even fit like one Call of Duty on this thing.
I think if you use Project X though, they're starting to push. I don't think you need to store it on the device if I've read that correctly. So then you'll be using less storage. So maybe that could be a help.
So at the minute, xCloud's only going to stream to phones. I mean, it seems logical that at some point they would stream to console as well, but for the time being, xCloud is just streaming to Android, so it's like streaming your stuff on the go. But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if one day streaming does, like you say, make that less of a concern. And yeah, it's really impressive and seems to have changed public opinion about Microsoft's next gen chances a bit. People are like, oh, okay, that's a really good deal. Like that seems worth considering, even if you haven't got Halo this year.
Yeah, it's a lot cheaper than I expected. Obviously, we've all known for a long time that this was a thing.
Yes,
it was no secret. It was the worst kept secret in the industry, I think. I wasn't expecting to be this cheap. $249 is incredibly reasonable, and especially with the finance plans as well.
Yeah, so we should talk about that as well. The financing options also were announced and finalised, I guess, this week. So here in the UK, that works out at £28.99 a month for the Series X and $20.99 for the S a month. So that's for the console over a 2-year period, but also you get Game Pass Ultimate for the duration of that 24 months, which actually makes them a really good deal.
Yeah, it is a very good deal.
The Series S, I think, is probably slightly cheaper to buy outright, but actually, if you're going to get the Series X, it's actually, and this is amazing to me, because like phone companies would typically, give you a finance plan, like, oh yeah, you could pay this much a month for your iPhone, whatever, and if you add it up, it's more expensive than just buying the phone in the first place.
I mean, that's the way they work. You have the benefit of not paying it all up front, but you then have the cost.
What's surprising about this is that this doesn't do that. So if you do some back of the napkin maths on this, so I think if you're buying an Xbox Series X outright and 24 months of Game Pass, that would cost you in the region of £713. If you do it with the finance option, it comes out at $695.
Either Microsoft are feeling very reasonable for trying to take it to PlayStation, or somebody got their maths wrong.
It's interesting. It's such a good deal. It feels like it might have been a mistake, and it's like too late to correct it. But it's obviously, I think actually the real story is that Microsoft are reflecting the way the economy is right now. They're looking at bringing a console to a market that is suffering globally from pandemic-related stresses and economic downturn. So this kind of option just makes so much sense. So we should mention it's called Xbox All Access. It's actually been available this generation in the UK on Xbox One X, but not very well advertised. And they're expanding it with the Series X. So they're expanding to 12 countries. Previously, you could only get it in the US, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. And now they are adding to that list Canada, Denmark, Finland, France, Norway, Poland, South Korea, Sweden. And even in the US, like places where it already launches, they're expanding it to more retailers, so you can buy it at your preferred retailer with this plan. Previously, I think it was just Best Buy, and now you can do it at GameStop or Target or Walmart. So yeah, really aggressive push, and an interesting shift, because really, I guess, it reflects the way that we've seen games going, more of a subscription-focused model. And we've talked before about the importance of Game Pass to Microsoft in their ecosystem, and this it seems really, really well thought out as a strategy.
Yeah, it's strong. It's really, really strong. It's cliche to say, but your move, Sony. What's your retaliation to this?
You're like,
this is an
you're
excellent
posturing.
deal. How are you going to compete? and I'm sure they're going to have a plan. I'm sure when the PS5 details drop, we'll probably be having a similar conversation about how good it is. Hopefully it is, because then it'll make things more interesting. If it's like not a good deal at all, then PlayStation will get the PlayStation fans and everyone else will go Xbox. And I just feel like that's not what they're going to do. So I am really interested to now see what PlayStation's response is. I mean, we've been saying, haven't we, it was a game of chicken. Who was gonna go first? Microsoft had gone first. PlayStation had got to follow pretty soon. It's funny that I think you tweeted the other day about how crazy it was. It's September and we still don't know prices and release dates. We now know Microsoft prices. We now know release date, but we still don't know PlayStation.
Yeah.
So it's got to be coming soon.
Mm-hmm.
Got to be.
And yeah, so we should have said the release date actually. It's November 10th for both consoles.
2 months today.
2 months today. 2 months to go. If you're going to say that about Sony, I'm going to have to ask you for a prediction. I'm going to make you commit on video. What do you think the PlayStation 5 is going to cost?
I think it'll be $499. I think they'll match it.
Okay, that's for the disc drive version or the digital version that they're doing?
The disc drive version. If they go digital version at $499, how can you compete with $249 with Game Pass? You can't. I think their digital version will be more expensive than that, because that $249 to me feels very low is the wrong word, because it's obviously not cheap, but it's a lot less expensive than I expected. I think they'll match it at $499 for the PS5, and I'd say the digital version might be something like maybe $350, $300 if they're going to try and really push.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think there'd be that much difference on the PlayStation side. I reckon you might see a $499 digital version on the PlayStation side and a higher price for the disc drive PlayStation 5. I just don't think Sony can afford to subsidize as heavily as Microsoft can, but we'll see. Hopefully they'll respond in due kind.
I mean, the beauty of it is there'll be a bunch of people who are day one buyers. There'll be a bunch of people that aren't. If they've gone high and day one sales are bad, you drop the price. You can't raise the price. So you can drop the price.
I mean, you could, but it wouldn't be a good idea.
Could, but it wouldn't really work very well. It's not really the way to do it. But.
And in the footage viewers are currently watching at home, they can see another bow in the another feather in the cap of Game Pass this week is that EA Play is now officially part of Game Pass Ultimate and Game Pass for PC.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, yeah, has
it come in from now? Is it like an immediate thing?
No, I think it comes in when the Xbox Series X launches. I think that's the plan.
Okay.
But yeah, EA Play is EA service. It includes games such as Titanfall, Mass Effect, Burnout Paradise Remastered, and also allows you to play the older sports titles as well for free. So you can't play like the current FIFA, but you can play last year's FIFA if you're.
Which is the same FIFA.
Don't get the football fans mad. I don't want people sending me messages on Twitter.
It's new kits. You move the players around. Yeah. I haven't bought a new FIFA game since like 2006.
Well, there goes our chances of working with EA. But yeah, I mean, this just makes Game Pass even more. I mean, EA Play on its own costs like $3.99, the basic version, and just to have that included in Game Pass Ultimate, especially when Game Pass Ultimate is itself included in Xbox All Access.
Yeah, it's just making it an even better deal. Even better deal.
Yeah, the best deal in gaming just continues to get better in terms of Game Pass. We should mention that Game Pass for PC is actually doubling in price. So Game Pass Ultimate staying the same, at least as far as we know. But Game Pass for PC has been on an introductory price for a while of $3.99, and I think $3.99. I think it's basically cheaper at the minute than buying actual EA Play. So I think they're increasing that to reflect that at probably about the same time. So if you subscribe to Game Pass for PC only, the price is going up. Still very good deal.
You did think, because when you said when it was doubling, it's like, I've got Game Pass for PC and I'm not really using it that much at the moment. And then you reminded me it was only $3.99, which is why I got it. So, not too worried about the price until $3.99. Incredibly reasonable.
Yeah.
So even doubling it's fine.
So yeah, big moves from Microsoft this week, and as you say, it's let's see how Sony responds. One last thing in the news segment before we move on. Game Dev Heroes this week announced their shortlist for all their awards. If you're not familiar with Game Dev Heroes, it's a grassroots award ceremony that celebrates people who work in the industry, and actually Etch are sponsoring it this year. We're really proud to help make sure the event happens, especially in a what's been a very difficult year for a lot of studios and people in general. So we're supporting the event, we're an event partner, and we're also going to particularly sponsor the Marketing and Community Award. So you can check out the shortlist right now at Game Dev Heroes on Twitter. You can go through all the nominees. There's a strong list. There are some very, very talented people, and we want to wish our congratulations to all the people who are nominated. And you can expect to see more from us on that front in future videos. So today is World Suicide Prevention Day, and not to lower the tone and make things less fun, but I wanted to take a moment out of today's stream just to share a video with you that I put together earlier about Celeste. This is a game that I really like, and I think has a very strong representation of mental health issues actually in the narrative. So yeah, I'm going to throw to a pre-recorded segment. We'll be back to talk about Google's insights into marketing in games very shortly, but this is Celeste. Hi, today is World Suicide Prevention Day, and as video games progress and mature as an art form, there gets an increasing amount of what you might call better representation of mental health in video games. And today what I wanted to do to mark the occasion really is share one of my favourites, my favourite games about depression and anxiety. This is Celeste, a fiendishly hard platformer available for all the major consoles, and it tackles some what you might describe as pretty weighty themes. You play as a character called Madeline. She struggles a lot with depression and anxiety, and during the course of the game she actually finds that this alter ego, this negative side of herself, becomes real on this mountain that she's climbing, and is forced to kind of confront herself. And this section here that I'm letting play out is one of the dialogue sections from the game, and it's a little bit long, but I'm going to let it play out because I think it's really good representation of strong writing in games, especially around these themes. Madeline here is talking to a character called Theo, who you meet during your journey. This is actually the back half of the game, so apologies for spoilers. Madeline is starting to figure some things out about herself and starting to open up to other people, which, as we know, is really important. Celeste is an interesting game that I encourage you to play if you're interested in platforming at all. You can actually check out Maddie Thorson on Twitter, put together a pinned tweet, pinned at time of recording, about all the little tips and tricks that the game employs to actually make the game more forgiving, because it's an incredibly difficult game. But they sum it up nicely when they said, Celeste is a game that wants you to succeed, even though it's hard. It gives you a significant challenge, but it really wants you to succeed. And the game is interested in making things easier for you in subtle ways, just to help you try and conquer some of the immense challenges that you face on the way up the mountain. The game is difficult. I have finished it. You're supposed to collect strawberries on the way, and the more strawberries you get, the better you are at the game. I did not get very many strawberries, so that's by no means a brag on my part. But the game's quite short. You can get through it pretty quickly. This is, I think, perhaps the longest conversation in the game. Most of the game isn't very conversation heavy, but I think it's fascinating how well drawn these characters are in terms of personality, through very little in the way of graphical fidelity. It's a pixel art game, obviously with some very nice drawings, without any particularly elaborate voice acting. You'll hear the kind of squeaks they do, which I think are well acted, but they obviously don't necessarily carry the same power that full voice acting would carry. Actually makes it harder to convey emotion, I think. Celeste is one of the few games that we included in an article last year, around this time actually, about mental health in video games, and if you're interested you can still find that article on our website. I will try and make sure that if you're watching this on archive on YouTube that the details are in the description. If you're watching it on Twitch live, then I'll put it in the chat. As somebody who's had their own journey with mental health and been relatively public about that in the past and present, I really identify with a lot of the themes and the dialogue that Madeline goes through in this game. We've all been there. It's true, it does. When we get through this conversation, I will show off a little bit of the core gameplay as well, so you can see some of the platforming in action. Theo is always insistent on taking selfies, and this is the first time that Madeline is the one to suggest it. Okay, here's some gameplay, and actually this bit's fairly easy. The feathers are a recurring motif, and in this level they allow you to fly for a short period of time. You kind of puzzle solve with them to reach areas you'd never be able to reach usually. You have a kind of wall climb, and you kind of stick to walls a little bit when you hit them, as well as a little dash that you saw I just did there. And the bubbles you actually have to dash into. Yeah, if you don't dash into them, you just bounce right off. I say this is easy. I mean, I'm not making it look easy. The game is a lot harder portions than this. Come on. Nothing that way. There we go. So yeah, like I say, Maddie's got loads of great tips, game dev tips essentially, on how to make games like this feel good. Just subtle ways that the game allows you to, jump a little bit early or to recover from a fall. This is Madeline's dark side manifested. Yeah, they sometimes talk to each other. Uh-oh. So this is interesting. It's basically a mechanic that encourages meditative breathing in the game. Madeline imagines a feather and tries to breathe as if she's lifting the feather up and exhale as if she's letting the feather drop. It's a mechanic that comes up multiple times in the game, and unfortunately on this occasion the negative part of Madeline is too strong. That's not what you want when you're trying to climb a mountain. You kind of see here how you sometimes are encouraged to explore. Oh, and actually this is a bit of light puzzle solving here. These blocks move in the direction that you hit them from if you hit them at speed. Yeah. Even when you figure out what you need to do, it's actually pulling it off is sometimes a little bit tricky. There we go. You can see what happens when you die there. It's pretty quick respawn, which is required because you die a lot. Yep. Like I say, challenging game. Oh, that was close. Hey. Well, I don't want to spoil too much of the game and the solutions to some of these areas. You can see how challenging it's getting. So we'll wrap up there. This is Celeste. Like I say, it's available for all major consoles. This footage is the PlayStation 4 version, which is a very fine way to play it. You can get it on most platforms. Check it out. I think it's a fantastic game and well worth your time if you like platformers, especially difficult ones. Okay, I'll see you again. And we are back. Thanks for sticking with us. That's Celeste. I took a look at that earlier today in celebration of World Suicide Prevention Day, and there's some links in chat to supporting resources, our article, as well as places to find help and support if you need it. So please do take advantage of that. Ben's back with me. Hi, Ben.
Hello.
Thanks for coming back.
Get rid of me.
Yeah, thanks for not bailing during during the pre-recorded segment. We're going to be talking about some research from Google. So this is the 6 key marketing trends that are changing the gaming industry. I'm going to go through them 1 to 6, talk about them. So if you're interested in how to market games, this is definitely the segment for you. How are you feeling, Ben? You good? You ready to talk about this?
Good.
Let's
do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So trend number 1, and this is all research I should mention that Google has been collecting in a variety of ways, looking at the industry as a whole, like qualitative data, also doing interviews and all sorts of things. So number 1 is growing adoption of digital distribution. Ben, do you want to talk about this a little bit?
Yeah, very relevant. Bearing in mind in the news section we were just talking about digital-only consoles, which obviously previously haven't really existed if you go not in the too distant past. So, I think it comes very much from it's easy to get it out. You can get the production costs down a bit because you're not having to create the discs and the boxes and the packaging and the shipping, and you've got out some of the middleman really. So it can make life a bit easier. And I think it also kind of feeds into the way we as consumers are wanting to behave now. Like, long gone are the days of, not having what you want when you want it. I think we're very much in an immediacy culture now. It's we want instant gratification. Like, obviously, we mentioned how big some of these games are, so it's not quite instant with the download, but it can be a heck of a lot quicker than ordering something online, waiting for it to come, or God forbid, getting in your car and actually going out into the world to buy something.
Actually having to see another human being.
Yeah, actually leave the comfort of your home. And digital downloads lets you do that. You can go, I want that game, I'm going to buy it now, I'll have it as soon as it's downloaded. It just, for a consumer, that for me that's much better. I'm very much an instant gratification consumer. If I see something,
why am I
want
not
it,
surprised?
We've been spoiled by 1-day delivery, same day delivery, get it now. If I have to wait a week for something, then you're probably over it by the time it arrives. So
yeah, you don't even want it anymore. Send it back.
Yeah. So I think it's very much a combination of the two things. I think from a production point of view, it makes sense now that we have the capabilities to do it well. So I think it's, in some instances, is the best it possibly can be. I'm sure over the years we'll see it get better and better and better. And from a consumer point of view, that's just what we want now. It's what we've come to expect. So I think
I think just from a technology point of view, like faster internet speeds, like everyone's internet's consistently getting faster. We've got 5G coming soon, and I think you kind of touched on it there. Like consumer attitudes, just the way that we consume other media has changed. Like you think about the difference between the days of Blockbuster versus Netflix now, or the days of HMV versus Spotify now. Like culturally we've become accustomed to these kind of delivery mechanisms, and Game Pass ties into that, but also a variety of services across the games industry, and just digital storefronts across the board, Steam. So really interesting, and definitely a critical part of any kind of launch strategy now. Like, you can't. In the old days, you just have a deal with a publisher, and you'd be like, okay, they're going to put it in stores on this date, better be done by then. But the industry has changed a lot since then. You actually have to have a plan for your digital rollout, the storefronts you're going to be on, how you're going to present yourself on those storefronts, right through to production. Like day one patches and stuff. It really impacts everything.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with pricing as well, because you see a lot of the digital downloads. You would think it would cost less because there's no packaging or transport involved, but they cost a little bit more. So it would be interesting to see whether that changes in the future. I mean, I would say at some point maybe physical discs just will stop being a thing. People won't buy them anymore. But the other side of the coin as well is if you're doing it digitally and you're selling through some of the stores. So if you're selling it through the Xbox store, the Microsoft store, the PlayStation store, they're going to want to take a cut of that. And if it's digital only, you're kind of at the mercy of the store that you want to sell through. With physical retailers, you can pick your retailers, and there's a lot more of them. So you can get a better price. And as bad as people think Epic is for the PC world, like that was pretty good, because all of a sudden Steam had a competitor, and then there's then you can get into a price war, and you're in a stronger negotiating position where if you have to go to the Microsoft store and you have to go to the PlayStation store, there's not a lot of competition there. It's if you want to be on our console and sell through our store, you're at the mercy of what we charge. Now, I'm not privy to exactly what the costs are, but that's one thing to consider. So that is the other side of the digital-only coin.
We won't get into it now, but that's exactly the fight that Epic and Apple are having about Fortnite. So number 2, and similar actually, kind of related to that, evolving business models. So what Google means by that is the way that revenue for games is changing, shifting away from you pay £40 or £50 or £60 even for a game in a box, then you get it and you just have it and that's it, to more of a recurring revenue, like free-to-play models, talking about things like loot boxes, love them or hate them, and also just subscriptions, battle passes, all that kind of thing. It's been a big thing for a few years now, and it seems to only be increasing. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's funny. Shameless plug. I actually wrote an article that touched on this a little bit in the other month about we're starting to see a trend towards studios and publishers trying to get more lifelong games rather than new title every year, and that generates your revenue. Your revenue is coming from a game that someone's playing for a long period of time. Now, obviously, if that's your aim, you need some form of getting some extra revenue in. So, obviously, you can do that through DLC, where you have to purchase to get more of the game. So you can buy the game up front, and then you can buy extra, or sometimes you say the free-to-play models, or like the freemium models, is where you go in and the game is free, but then you have the expansions and the DLC and the loot boxes, and that's how you generate revenue. But with the lifelong games as well, if you're constantly adding to it, even if you're not necessarily charging for that DLC, so there's games that do that, like we know No Man's Sky does that, Rocket League does that, and there are charges in Rocket League, but they do release updates to the game that you don't have to pay for, and that encourages more people to buy the game later, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a big hit, like my game is coming out in September 2020, and I'm going to get all my sales now, and it'll peter off, and then that'll be really it. You can see strong sales throughout if you keep adding to the game. So that's really where we're seeing the industry move to, I think, with the lifelong games. There's the stats like Paradox put out in their annual report at the end of last year that like 80% of their revenue came from titles that had released in a previous year. So there's massive legs in it, and I think we're only going to see the industry go more and more that way, because one of the things that this industry is always a talking point is the hours that people work, and when you're trying to churn out games quickly, like lots of titles, and hit deadlines to get games out, then obviously that makes that worse. Whereas if you have one title you're focusing on and you're improving it, I'm not saying that's easier or it reduces the workload, but it makes it a little bit more manageable and a little bit easier to go through rather than we've got to get 3 titles out this year. Everyone's crunching to get it done. So I definitely think we're going to see the shift continue to go that way. I don't think it's going to start coming back the other way anymore.
Okay, number 3, the rise of gaming as a social forum, and this is something we've really seen been exaggerated by COVID-19 lockdown measures, but it was happening before, so it feels like it's just someone's just pressed the nitrous button on this. So virtual spaces, these online environments that players inhabit have become almost a refuge for a lot of people during difficult times, and they're being seen more as platforms for social engagement rather than just like a game to play. And the key example of this, not to bring up again, is Fortnite, obviously. So we've seen concerts in Fortnite, such as the Travis Scott concert, which have been incredibly successful. Like, Fortnite very much feels like it's gone all in on this concept. It's not even really a game anymore. I mean, it is a game, but it's also a platform that serves a variety of experiences throughout the year. Do you have anything to add to the social aspect?
I think actually, as you say, Fortnite and with the concerts and everything, and the production value on those were insane. Like, it was such high quality. But I think someone who's been a real powerhouse in this through the pandemic period is Animal Crossing. I mean, we've seen all sorts going on in Animal Crossing, from family gatherings, gender reveal parties. People have been having work meetings in there, so it's they've been really strong throughout. In kind of, it's not what the game was set up to do, but it has that facility and people are using it, which is kind of what is so great about games, is that you can, if the facility is there, you can use your imagination to use it how you want, which I think the pandemic has obviously brought that out in people a lot. So I think, it's funny when we look at this and goes, a key trend is like, gaming is a social forum. It's a really social activity. And when you just sit and think about that just for a second, it's kind of like, that's what gaming is. Like, yes, you have single player games, but typically when you think of playing something, I think a lot of time playing a game, playing with someone, it's an incredibly social activity. So it is slightly funny to me that this is a trend that, gaming is social, because it is a very social hobby to have, but it's interesting that it's now picking up speed and people are starting to use it socially differently. I think that's maybe what they're getting at with the trend.
I think what they're saying is, from like a marketing perspective, like, maybe you wouldn't have marketed a game in that way before, but you would start to market it that way now, and to encourage that kind of community.
Yeah, I think as well, I think if we're going to look at it from that perspective as well, the marketing, which obviously what we're doing is, I think that comes in very much kind of relating slightly to the point I don't know why I pointed up as if we were just discussing it up there. The previous point we were just talking about is, like, it doesn't feel like when we're talking about like the concerts and people having work meetings, family gatherings, that's very much, to me, feeding into the long life element again and extending the life of the game. Doesn't feel like a launch thing. Animal Crossing, we would never have launched the game being like, and you can have your work meetings in here, and that's just not the way it would have gone. But once the game's out and you can see people are going out, then it becomes a really strong marketing hook as, look at what you can do in this game as well as having fun. So I think that's very much where it sits in. Something like the Fortnite with the concerts, where it is more of turning into an experience game rather than the game, then maybe you might lean to that in the launch. But I think, this very much fits into the game's out. This is where I'm trying to get new people in, get the old players back into it. So that's how I think that is really going to fit into the marketing side of things. I don't know if you agree or disagree.
That's a good point. Really ties together. Speaking of things that tie into that, and I think this is something we've talked about recently, so maybe we don't need to spend too much time on it. Popularity of content creators and live streaming. I mean, you're watching a stream right now. You at home, you're watching us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. But streaming has become, it already was a huge aspect of gaming and the way that content's consumed by gamers and game fans. That growth is just accelerating, and it's getting its day in the sun. It's becoming more and more mainstream to stream or to watch streams. And yeah, so some stats here from Google. 50% of gamers watch gaming streams, and that number goes up to 75% if you're looking at the younger age group, so people who are, growing up with games now. Streaming is just native to them. It's just part of the gaming experience, which is definitely something that we have talked about a lot at Edge Play.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you said, it's becoming native. They're going to age myself. I'm not that old, but the kids of today, they're not.
Do you have VHS or Betamax?
Growing up watching. Yeah, VHS. Betamax was a better product. It just wasn't marketed as well. So marketing wins, which is why we're talking about it. But the kids of today, they're not growing up watching, terrestrial TV and things like that. What they're watching is video game streaming. Like, video games is starting to take over, and I think we've said about this before. Like, video games aren't competing with other video games; they're competing with the likes of Netflix and other hobbies. And you could say that about everything. Everything is competing with everything now. We're competing for time and not competing against products. So. But with streaming, it's huge. As you said, it was growing and growing and growing, and then don't want to keep harping on about it, but it's relevant. And the pandemic we're currently in has happened, and naturally it's skyrocketed because people aren't going out, people are staying in playing, so people are streaming more, so people are looking to watch more because they've got more time on their hands, and it's rocketed. And again, with the shameless plug, if you didn't check out the Etch Business Briefing last week, we took over it, and there's a blog on there about using Twitch to marketing, which touches on using streamers. So if you didn't see that, check it out. I promise this show is not just a plug for my blog post, even though I'm turning it into that.
Plugging all his blog posts. I put those links in the chat for you. Gamalam in the chat actually says, I never thought I'd be happy to sit and watch other people play games. Look at you now, Ben Gammon, watching us live.
Yeah, you're watching people talk about people watching play games.
Yeah, you're an extra level removed.
Getting messy, mate. Getting messy.
What a sad life you have. I'm joking. Thanks for watching. We love our audience.
Stay with us.
Yeah, please don't turn off. Don't touch that dial. Number 5 is data. Data and customer insights. So this is kind of related to that digital delivery. It's basically as a result of the increasing reliance on digital delivery methods. Kind of anticipating and expecting and starting to see that you get kind of more closed loop marketing strategies. You can get more analytics out of that. You can, really chart a player's path to purchase and also path beyond purchase, what they do in the game and their kind of journey as a whole. This really ties into our kind of proposition and what we do with our partners, studios and publishers is think about the extended experience. So every player touch point matters, and the experience is everything. So the increasing reliance on digital only makes that easier, because you can have more of a joined up picture than we could ever get before.
Yeah, I mean, data is king, said every marketer in 2020 ever, but it's true. it sounds a cliche, but it is true. I mean, when we're looking at doing marketing for games with our marketing guys, it's we start with the data. We take a very much we will be led by the data. It's great to have assumptions, and gut feels are not to be discounted, but it's so valuable to be led by the data. And as you said, now we're starting to get these closed loops with the digital delivery, and we understand now better than ever what people are doing, so we can use that to market them, to give them more of what we know that they like. So it's so incredibly important to have that data and to not ignore that data. But I think what people need to be wary of is when we start looking at data and we start looking at insights, is it's very easy to just collect numbers, and it can become very overwhelming very, very quickly. You almost need to know what you're looking for. You can't go in going, I want to necessarily prove this, and be blind yourself to actually just almost like confirmation bias, like, oh, I know this and I'm going to find what I need to prove it. But you also need to kind of be looking at what is the important stuff. So collect the data and like, what is the important stuff, rather than trying to cover everything. Find where the data that's going to help you is, and leverage that. If you try and leverage every piece of data that you get out of a game, you'll never do anything, because there is so much you can get out. You kind of need to really have a strategy and a plan for how you want to use data, rather than going down, oh, data is important, let's collect a load of data, now what? So it's incredibly accessible now with the digital delivery, and everything's just getting smarter and easier to collect. But that doesn't mean it's easy to do something with. So I would just take your time, think about it, and not necessarily rush it. It's difficult. It is difficult. So, but the possibilities are huge, and people don't necessarily always like their data being taken, but and obviously you've got to do it ethically and don't take data for the sake of. But when your data is collected, it makes your experience better. There are people who will take data in other industries, not the gaming industry, and exploit it. But a lot of the time when people are collecting data, it's to try and make the experience better. Obviously, there's monetary value for a business to do that, but ultimately, as a consumer, if you take that out of and go, well, my experience is going to get better from this data being collected, you're going to get a better experience. So,
okay.
I don't know whether there was a point in there, or
I'll just let you talk.
Hopefully there was.
You can have the show if you want. I'll clock off in a minute. You can just keep going. Yeah. Number 6 then, and this kind of ties back into some of the Xbox Series S news that we had at the top of the show, and news about Game Pass Ultimate. Google's identified, and I think this ties in with what a lot of people are seeing, thinking, and expecting now out of the years to come, that cloud delivery is the next big disruptor. And we probably should caveat this. Google do have a platform for cloud delivery. They did invent Google Stadia. That is a thing they owned. They maybe have a vested interest in saying that this is the future of games. But it does seem...
this was supposed to be a 5-point list, and someone at Google's like, just slide that on.
Yeah, put Stadia on the end there. But we are seeing, it's not just Stadia. There are a variety of services that offer some form of streaming. Sony has PlayStation Now, which is not quite the same, but offers some streaming options for certain games. Nvidia are in this game, and as we know, Microsoft are wading into this arena heavily armed with Game Pass Ultimate, adding xCloud streaming for free to Game Pass Ultimate subscribers this month, I think. It might even be out now, or today, or sometime soon. And then, obviously, by the time the Series X and S launches, that'll just be a thing by then. Cloud delivery. So not having to download the games or own them necessarily, just streaming them from a remote server.
Yeah, I think it feeds back to what we were talking about very, very early on in this chat. It's the way as consumers we are expecting to be given content now. I hate when you hear it when it's like, we're going to be the Netflix of insert industry, which I think speaks to how powerful the Netflix system is, that everyone wants to replicate it. And it kind of makes sense for gaming to go down that route. Now the technology is getting there to make it possible. Because as we said, what's great about digital delivery is you get it there and then, but you've got the download time. And then you also need the storage time, which we were talking about with the Xbox storage earlier on in the show. But that's how people want to be given content. They want to have it immediately, and cloud streaming gives you that. You get rid of the download time. If you have a subscription model, you have access to so many different things. You don't tie yourself to necessarily buying I've paid 60 quid for a game, so now I'm going to have to play it to death because I've invested in it. You can maybe pay £10 a month and you have access to 100 games, and you can pick and choose what you play. It's what we're becoming accustomed to. So it makes logical sense for gaming to start moving that way, as we've said, as we are competing with the likes of Netflix and other hobbies. We need to get on that level with gaming, and it's great to see that it's moving that way and strides are being made. As you say, obviously Google has Stadia, which I think they actually came out at one point like, this isn't the Netflix of gaming, because I think that's what everyone expected it to be when it was announced, and it's not quite that. But then, as you said, you've got the PlayStation option, and Microsoft are coming in with their xCloud, which I shamefully called Project X earlier. Thank you.
I mean,
you corrected me, but didn't call me out.
You
And I was
also
like,
just
I got
called
it
Google
wrong.
Stadia Google Stadia, but we'll let that slide.
Oh, is that a faux pas? You're not allowed to say that. That's my. I'm going to say that's my accent.
Stadia? Is that?
Yeah, Stadia.
I mean,
That's how
maybe
it's spelled.
people could write in the comments whether they pronounce it Stadia.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
Stadia.
sure it's Stadia.
Is it? I don't know.
There's no R in there.
I'm just a simple northern boy trying to get by.
That is true. So yeah, that brings us to the end of the 6 key marketing trends that are changing the gaming industry, and the end of the show. Thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it if you tuned in. If you liked the show, remember to subscribe. Come back next Thursday, because it is on every 4 PM, at least till we get shut down. No one's told us no yet, so we'll still be here. Dan will be back next week, hopefully. Is he back next week? Someone will be here to talk through the news, and we'll have more gameplay, more insights right here on Etch Play's Twitch account. And we'll see you again soon. Bye.